Have you ever pondered on why the Israel-Palestine conflict, a struggle that spans over a century, remains unresolved? Today we find ourselves in the midst of a situation teetering on the brink, a delicate balance that could tip at any moment. The current state of affairs is a complex tapestry woven with threads of ongoing tensions, political power plays, and the relentless rhythm of everyday life that soldiers on in both Israel and Palestine. In the corridors of power, leaders grapple with the weight of decisions that could alter the course of history. Yet, amid the political maelstrom, the human element persists. In the bustling markets of Jerusalem, the quiet olive groves of the West Bank, the vibrant beaches of Tel Aviv, and the narrow, resilient streets of Gaza, life continues in all its grit and glory. To understand the present, we must delve into the past. And so we journey back to the roots of a conflict that has shaped the lives of millions. The roots of the conflict can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. At this time, two significant movements were gaining momentum: Zionism and Arab nationalism. Zionism, led by Theodor Herzl, sought a homeland for the Jewish people, responding to centuries of persecution. Simultaneously, Arab nationalism was rising, fueled by a desire for independence from Ottoman rule. As World War I drew to a close, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, promising the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The declaration also stipulated that nothing should prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. These conflicting promises were a source of tension. Following the war, Britain took control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate. The mandate period witnessed increasing Jewish immigration, prompting unrest and violence between the Jewish immigrants and the Arab population. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, but Arab leaders did not. The rejection led to civil war, escalating into the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, following Israel's declaration of independence. The war ended with armistice agreements in 1949, but not before causing significant displacement. Approximately 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes, becoming refugees. On the other hand, the State of Israel was established and recognized by many nations, albeit with borders far more extensive than those outlined in the UN partition plan. The 1948 war laid the groundwork for a conflict that would continue to shape the Middle East for decades. It set the stage for a series of subsequent wars, intifadas, peace accords, and continued disputes over land and identity. This complex history, woven with national aspirations, territorial disputes, and human tragedy, is crucial to understanding the roots of the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict. The conflict has been marked by several key events and turning points. Let's begin with the Six-Day War in 1967. This was a pivotal moment in the history of the conflict. Israel preemptively attacked Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, leading to significant territorial gains. By the end of the war, Israel had seized control of the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. Fast forward to 1973, and we have the Yom Kippur War. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel, aiming to reclaim the territories lost in the Six-Day War. While the war ended with a ceasefire and no significant territorial changes, it marked a psychological turning point. It demonstrated that Arab states were willing and able to challenge Israel militarily. Then came the Oslo Accords in the early 1990s. This was a series of peace agreements between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. The accords marked the first time both parties officially recognized each other. They outlined a plan for Palestinian self-rule in parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. However, the process stalled due to a lack of trust and ongoing violence. The Second Intifada that erupted in 2000 was another turning point. This Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation was marked by a wave of suicide bombings and other attacks. The violence led to a hardening of attitudes on both sides and a shift away from the peace process. More recent events have also shaped the conflict. In 2017, the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, a move that sparked controversy and protests. 2020 saw the signing of the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab states. However, these agreements did not address the Palestinian issue, leading to further tensions. These events have shaped the narrative and dynamics of the conflict, bringing us to where we are today. Opening. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not just about politics and territory, it's about people. Peel back the layers of politics and territory, and we find the human face of the conflict. It's a face marked by human rights issues, a face shaped by the refugee crisis, a face that is often, tragically, too young to fully comprehend the complexities of the situation they're born into. Let's talk about human rights. It's a term we've all heard, but in the context of the Israel-Palestine conflict, it takes on an extra layer of poignancy. The United Nations has reported numerous human rights violations on both sides, including restrictions on movement, unlawful killings, forced displacement, and the demolition of homes. This is not a distant, abstract problem. It's a daily reality for those living in the conflict zone. Now let's consider the refugee crisis. For decades, Palestinians have been displaced, both within their own territories and beyond their borders. Today they constitute one of the largest and longest-suffering refugee populations in the world. These are people who have been torn from their homes, their communities, their sense of identity. And then there are the children. Children who should be playing, learning, dreaming, but are instead caught up in a conflict beyond their comprehension. They're growing up in a world where fear and uncertainty are constant companions. A world where their education is often disrupted, their mental health is under constant strain, and their futures are uncertain. But amidst all this, there is life. People in the conflict zone go about their daily routines just like you and me. They go to work, they send their kids to school, they gather with family and friends. They are not just victims of a conflict, but individuals living their lives, often with extraordinary resilience and hope. Closing. Behind the headlines, there are real people with real stories of suffering, resilience, and hope. These are the people who live the Israel-Palestine conflict every day, the people whose lives are shaped by it, and the people who, despite everything, continue to hope for a better, more peaceful future. Despite the complexities, the dream of peace remains alive. In the midst of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the concept of a two-state solution has often surfaced as a beacon of hope. This solution proposes the establishment of an independent Palestine alongside Israel, living in peace and security. Yet implementing this solution is not simple. It requires a delicate balance of power, negotiation, and most importantly, mutual respect and understanding. Each side has its own narratives, its own historical injustices, and its own dreams for the future. Reconciling these narratives is no easy task, but it is a necessary step towards peace. The role of the international community is crucial in this journey. Through diplomatic efforts, international powers can facilitate dialogues, mediate disputes, and promote cooperation. They can ensure that any solution respects the rights and aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians, fostering a sustainable peace. Over the years, there have been numerous peace initiatives, from the Oslo Accords to the recent Abraham Accords. While some of these initiatives have faced criticism and setbacks, they represent attempts to bridge the divide, to foster understanding and to pave the way for a peaceful coexistence. But perhaps the most essential ingredient in this road to peace is dialogue. Open, honest, respectful dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians. Dialogue that transcends politics and touches on the shared human experiences, the shared dreams and fears. Dialogue that fosters empathy, breaks down barriers, and builds bridges of understanding. And this dialogue must extend beyond the negotiating table. It must permeate schools, communities, and homes. It must involve not just politicians but teachers, students, parents, and children. Because ultimately, peace is not just about political agreements. It's about people learning to live together, to respect each other, and to share a land that both call home. The road to peace may be long and fraught with challenges, but it's a journey that must be undertaken for the sake of future generations. For in the end, the dream of peace is not just about the cessation of conflict. It's about building a future where every child, Israeli or Palestinian, can grow up without fear, filled with hope. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue that defies simple solutions. We've journeyed through the current state of affairs, delved into the roots of the conflict, and examined the key events and turning points. We've looked at the humanitarian perspective and contemplated the road to peace. The narrative of this conflict is not black and white, but a spectrum of grays. It's a tapestry woven with threads of history, politics, religion, and above all, humanity. From the contested city of Jerusalem to the divisions in Palestinian politics, from the Israeli settlements to the voices of hope from both sides, each facet of this issue adds to its complexity. But in the midst of this complexity, there is a call for understanding, for empathy, for dialogue, a call to acknowledge the human impact and the need for peaceful solutions. As we strive for a more peaceful world, let us remember that understanding is the first step towards resolution.